Welcome to my channel. This is a reading from the book Abstracting Divinity by Heather Marsh, Chapter 6, Martyrs, Tyrants, Saviours, and Sirens. This chapter begins with a quote from Mo Z. Now the calamity to the people and the world is tremendous, yet the rulers enjoy doing it. This means they enjoy injuring and exterminating the people. Is this not perversity? And now we begin. For whatever reason, and a variety are possible, some people are filled with surplus anima. This anima attracts others and creates a power dynamic. Those that give excess anima away become martyrs if they are in positions of power, and saviors if they are reflectors. Those that take or keep anima become tyrants if they are in a position of power, and sirens if they are the negative image. A reflector who keeps anima is refusing to act as a savior and is therefore cast as a negative image and a siren. Since the roles are externally defined, it is very difficult for a person to have excess anima and not be cast into one of these roles. Avoidance of any of these fates is why those who receive unexpected fortune so often rid themselves of it quickly. That option is not available to those who are channelers of primary anima. The difference in the overall direction of energy flow is the difference between the endo-ideal tyrant and an exo-ideal martyr. Tyrants take anima and martyrs have it taken from them. Tyrants use power to accumulate secondary anima, which they hoard. Martyrs have excess anima that they disperse to those around them, often involuntarily. A tyrant is usually dependent on and created by secondary anima. A martyr is usually filled with anima which they have obtained through exceptionally well-developed primary anima conduits. There is much crossover, however. A tyrant may have gained their initial power through an ability to channel primary anima. A martyr may be an accidental beneficiary of secondary anima, or even a would-be tyrant without the power to withstand the centrifugal force surrounding them. Dominance in an interaction depends on who is giving energy and who is receiving it. Energy flow is usually mutual, except in an abusive relationship, but the balance can tip in one direction or another. With a large number of interactions, such as those in an intense and isolated relationship, or those involving a prolific anima source, even small differences can result in power acquired or lost. Once the party has obtained power in a relationship, for whatever reason, interactions often become increasingly predatory and unbalanced, as that power may be used to come out ahead in every interaction. This is why a power imbalance is created from the outset in most established hierarchies. Corporate executives are paid more. Government officials have institutional force, and teachers can control the free time and future of students. Under male endo-idealism, women were legally stripped of the ability to survive without men, and under parent endo-idealism, children do not have the social structure to survive without parents. In an open grouping, like a celebrity fandom, the crowd feeds off of and destroys the idol for their entertainment. In a closed endo group, like an abusive marriage or tyranny, the crowd or family is consumed by the idol who would destroy them for his or her validation. Energy exchanges can be observed in a relatively pure form on social media. Some participants become addicted to little validations, while others become depleted by a continual, unrequited outflow or negative interactions. In other situations, a swarm of little depletions can energize a crowd and deplete a large account. The excitement on exposure or assignment of guilt to a celebrity is the anticipation and eagerness to participate in an energy feast from a martyrdom. Power can be obtained by either supporting or attacking a stronger persona on social media. Social media is full of parasites who roam topics looking for anyone with fame to attack and parasite off of, just as it is full of tyrants who send their followers to attack others. It is a fascinating environment to watch the same types of interactions that occur in real life, but it is not the same as real life. While the dopamine and initial excitement from contact is readily available on social media, the bonding hormones that create the security of reliable connection are not. This makes social media particularly addictive to those who already are suffering deanimation, but ultimately it leaves them further depleted with even less resources to reanimate themselves and even more vulnerable to endogroups. An endogroup is a structure for creating power through the transfer of energy. The endogroup acts as a shared animus where the energy of each member is available to all members. The endogroup is not always created by an idol, and it is not always to the benefit of the idol. At times, an idol becomes a tyrant and drains the group of anima. At other times, the idol is a prolific channeler of primary anima, and the endogroup exists on secondary anima derived from the idol. These latter endogroups risk martyring their idol in their euphoric frenzy, just as tyrants risk the genocide of their prey. The risk of martyrdom can motivate idols to ensure the balance of power is on their side. They can do this by securing an endogroup with external existential threat and by weakening the individuals in the group. Shunning of those outside, seen in celebrity feuds or fandom wars, or existential threats, such as threatened celebrity retirement, are used to strengthen an endogroup bond, even those around celebrity fandom. As stated earlier, the key difference between an exo-ideal and an endo-ideal is the direction of energy flow. A secondary and related element is the ability of the reflectors to leave. A celebrity fandom is, therefore, far more likely to have an exo-ideal, and a dictatorship more likely to have an endo-ideal. But this is not an absolute indicator. Some dictators have been at the mercy of their populations, and many cults and abusive relationships are formed where the individuals appear to be free to leave, but have had their will to do so sublated. This is the reason democratic dictatorships exist. People supposedly have the power to vote out tyrants, but they do not always have the strength of will or motivation to avail themselves of the opportunity, or they have had their options limited to alternate tyrannies. Endo-ideals are not necessarily predators, and reflectors are not necessarily prey. Predators do not necessarily need secondary anima. Sometimes, like in filiality, they feel entitled to it, and at other times it is just readily available. Sometimes an endo-ideal becomes a tyrant as a protective measure. An endo-ideal who is not a tyrant must have other protective measures, whether that is physical security or isolation, from the reflectors who will swarm them and eventually or immediately destroy them. The role of the idol is to protect the unique and special feeling of the endogroup and strengthen its endosocial membrane. The idol does this by acting as the anima bank of the endogroup, the recipient and repository of all excess anima. Getting celebrities to bless, kiss, or take pictures with babies is a custom meant to collect the celebrity's anima or bond it with the babies and protect the baby's health. In times of turmoil, a sudden reversal can cause a run on the bank and the idol will be attacked. Creation of the idol can come from an endo-ideal, reflectors, or even a negative image. Vulnerable groups with little sense of self, or in transition from other endo groups, compose armies of reflectors and negative image in search of an endo-ideal. The propensity of young teens, particularly girls, to create fan armies that devote all of their spare time and social energy to reflecting their idol is a common phenomenon. The more these fans build up their idol and the more they push their idol to achieve, the greater is the shared anima for the reflectors. These fan armies often satisfy their craving for anima through their inter-endogroup conflict. At other times, they may turn on their idol and bond over their shared experience of destruction of the martyr. Reflectors have the power to define the idol. When the idol is simply an energy source, the reflectors can leave at any time and the idol has no defense against depletion without strengthening an endogroup around themselves. Until very recently, worshippers were usually free to take their sacrifices to whichever god seemed the most likely to reciprocate with the desired outcome. Endo-group cults were created when one god had enough investment to make it costly for worshippers to switch allegiance. In these cases, cult rivalries, or even enmities, would develop to strengthen the cult around each god. An idol who is not an endo-self or endo-ideal is often forced to become one to avoid depletion. This is the root of the toxic nature of power. Idols often surround themselves with sycophants to replenish the energy that has been drained from them. This can turn into a cycle which will eventually destroy their exosocial drive and their ability to access primary anima. If it was this ability that attracted their reflectors in the first place, the reflectors may turn on their former idol and destroy them, leaving them to rely on drugs or other destructive forms of obtaining autoanima that taken from their own stores. More extreme endo groups with less vulnerable idols, such as militias, criminal gangs, sports fans, or gamer communities, bond over shared anima extracted from the negative image or rival endo groups. These endo groups are strengthened by having a vulnerable negative image to attack instead of their own idol. Stronger endo groups are often male dominated because the negative image of male endo idealism, women, or men categorized as effeminate, is always available for them to attack instead of their own idol or other endo groups. An endo group is a structure of power in which the idol is surrounded by both centrifugal and centripetal force and can dominate. Examples that illustrate this are everywhere in the world of celebrity and power. Fans and followers often destroy their idols in their frenzied search for euphoria. It is anima they seek, and the allegiance they show to the anima source is not loyalty. The powerful are completely justified in their fear of their followers. Both reflector and negative image positions can be held by endo-selves who, despite their seemingly great disadvantage and supportive role, can destroy the idol. Endo-selves circling the idol are looking for blood. They are not concerned over whose blood it will be. Even in groups of two, an endo-self reflector can act like a lethal parasite. Friends who adopt every aspect of their target, even to the point of appropriating accomplishments, history, mannerisms, and relationships, are typical in childhood but dangerous in adults. Such people do not only want an intense relationship, they seem to want to crawl into the other's skin and occupy the other's position in their self. They will first pretend the other's actions were their own, then they will deny the other had any role. They will first attach to the other's relationships, and then they will attempt to have the other cut off and ostracized. Eventually, they will seek to destroy the original owner of the self they are now occupying. What seemed to be an extremely supportive relationship becomes invasion of the body snatchers. This is the ultimate interception of anima networks. An endo-self reflector identifies strongly with their idol because they are the ones who extract energy from interaction. If they manage to develop a close relationship with their idol, they will accrue power to themselves. They will create a shared animus and then become the dominant will in it. With the accumulation of power, they will adopt more of the endo-ideal role and drop the role of reflector. As the endo-ideal, they will assume the identity of their idol, credit themselves with all of their idol's attributes and accomplishments, and then seek to cast their idol as the negative image, saddled with all of their own guilt and vices. These relationships are the ultimate in gaslighting, and the ending usually comes as a horrifying shock to the prey. Many cultures have realized the dangers to the self from excessive adulation. Like the queens of hives, neither martyrs nor tyrants can leave, or they will cease to exist in their current form. An endo-ideal is an incomplete self, as are reflectors and the negative image. Each needs the others to create a whole, and all will violently resist the breakup of the endo group. Traumatic bonding ensures that prey will continue seeking approval or acceptance from the predator, even to the point of attacking anyone who tries to rescue them from the situation. This happens to the people under control of a tyrant, and it happens to martyrs under the control of their reflectors. A star has the ability to take energy from a crowd and give it back amplified to encompass everyone. Anyone who has been to an exhilarating live theater performance, concert, or sports game is familiar with this phenomenon. A star's attraction is not their technical skill, which is often very lacking in the most celebrated stars. It is their ability to channel primary anima. Most people can acquire skill, but most with star quality or charisma are born with it. This power grows with celebrity, however, and so it may be accorded to those who are born with or acquire status but had no innate ability to channel anima. This power may also be lost, as seen in A Fall from Grace, when deanimation leaves a former celebrity with no remaining attractive power. As channelers of primary anima, artists are a group often martyred by audiences who revel in watching their self-destructive spirals destroy them. The lack of acknowledgement of energy transfer allows audiences to pretend they are passively watching a spectacle when they are actively partaking in a feast. Because entertainers have far more access to primary anima than people in professions such as bureaucracy, they are a much more lucrative supply of anima. The idol risks getting caught in the hurricane of endoselves, trying to claim the source of anima for themselves. There is a real threat from predatory reflectors, as, like the farmer who killed the goose that laid him golden eggs, they can become convinced that anima can be theirs more quickly by destruction of the source. Instead of gratitude for the daily offerings, they will become addicted and increasingly bitter that they do not get more every day. Such predatory reflectors seize the achievement of idols and insist that they would be nothing without their fans, which is a threat as well as a credit theft. The dangerous dance with fandom creates and also destroys the idol. Parasitic fans establish connections and then use those connections to drain their idols, exactly like every other abusive relationship. They claim a right to the anima they are draining and devalue the celebrities as narcissists, ungrateful, or crazy if they resist. These fans leave their prey as close to empty as they can. The idol then becomes particularly vulnerable to exploitative reflectors. These reflectors replenish the idol's desperately depleted anima, but take their independence. It is interesting to watch this effect weakening with the collapse of the current dominant and authoritative endo-idealism. With so much focus currently on tyrant predators, celebrity martyrs are enjoying a reprieve. Indeed, audiences have begun defending the privacy of entertainers as they redirect their demands for anima onto politicians and billionaires. Boredom is becoming an even more common reaction to media exploitation of celebrities. The return of secure tyrants will always bring back the corresponding need for martyrs, however. A person who has a normally developed exosocial drive feels excitement at meeting others and has anima conduits available for connection. A person who was born to a life of fame and wealth seldom has the same eagerness. More often, they greet new social encounters with guarded passivity, withholding connection and neither offering nor taking energy. This is possibly due to satiety, but could also be to avoid a chronic drain from the people around them. Without an endosocial structure, the egalitarian force will cause energy to continually flow from those who have the most to those who have the least. Since endoselves are insatiable and starved for anima, they will quickly deplete any prolific source they encounter. Because endoselves have no primary anima conduits themselves, they will do this the only way they know how, by consuming the source and making it part of themselves or destroying it. The martyr's self is under continual attack, resulting in the famed emotional fragility of so many in that position. This fragility is a side effect of prolonged deamination or stability. Women isolated in many roles, particularly as wife or mother, are often accused of the same fragility caused by deanimation and instability. The instability arises from the interception of their primary anima conduit, creating a lack of dependability or security of supply. The interception of anima by industry and media causes instability and weakness for entertainers, leading to an increased dependence on the anima provided by a temperamental audience. It is usually easy to see the surface depiction of the relationship between a celebrity and their fans. In the music industry, some artists build themselves up and degrade their fans to establish themselves as the endo ideal, while others invite abuse from their fans and establish themselves as the negative image. The endo-ideal becomes the tyrant who is defended by their fans, and the negative image becomes the martyr who is destroyed by theirs. Many entertainers or their industry management encourage fans to act as avid reflectors. The real nature of the relationship is obvious as soon as the fans turn on the endo-ideal artist, however. Few artists have the personal resources to survive such depletion and remain in good health and strength, particularly since they have usually dedicated intense effort to establishing primary anima conduits with only one source, that controlled by their fans. Revolutionary reversals are very easy in a situation where the endo-ideal does not have the institutional authority to defend their position. Less powerful entertainers are encouraged to act subservient to their fans. Often, humiliation is an offering demanded by fans. In much of Asia, constant apologies are demanded from stars. This expectation is increasing globally. An entire global media industry exists with the sole aim of catching celebrities in humiliating circumstances. Other industries are built around public relations, including law courts, which defend celebrities from potentially disastrous violation and depletion. The demands for flawless perfection and the insistence on humiliation and apologies, as well as the relentless privacy violations, indicate that the idol is being sacrificed for the collective guilt. Fans are not being humiliated, exposed, and forced to apologize. Guilt is being assigned solely to the idol, and penance is demanded solely from the idol. The guilt is serving as a justification to the fans. Their anima theft is depicted as something owed to them in repayment for a social debt assigned to the idol. In other cases, such as sport, the structure of the sport is designed with the anima flow direction built in. Team sports, which were traditionally male and often restricted to the endo-ideal classes, allow the athletes to absorb energy from both their teams and a stadium of fans. The exceptions in male sport are boxing, which traditionally drew participants from negative image groups, and golf and equestrian sport, which were rarely open to the general public. Traditionally, women's sports, such as dance, gymnastics, and figure skating, isolate or pit women against each other in competition and encourage silent, critical judgment by audiences. While men's sports encourage dramatics, which exaggerate the effort and pain the athletes endure, women's sport encourages athletes to smile and make it look effortless. In women's sport, this structure creates maximum extraction of anima for the audience. The athlete is left to consume anima from her own reserves or channel it through artistic creation. Even settings such as gyms continue the expectation of sexual dichotomy in anima flow. Women are still expected to be quiet, reserved, and look good during their workouts, while men's grunts and roars fill the air and extract surrounding anima. The reason many people are still so reluctant to support women's team sports is resistance to giving audience anima to women. The balance of power between an audience and a martyr is evident in the star's treatment as the negative image. Martyrs are ordered to be selfless and forever grateful, and always uphold the image that has been created for them. If they protest audience or a fan cruelty or privacy violations, they are accused of ingratitude or ego. These are both guilt reversals typical to treatment of the negative image. It is the nature of an endo group to assign negative image status to those being punished and to assign all guilt to the negative image. For this reason, an attack on a person may be enough for the group to turn on them and assign them both guilt and negative image status. The guilt assignment may follow the punishment just as easily as the reverse. The true beneficiaries in these relationships are the industries which both instigate and enable the reflector, negative image conflict, and profit from it. The right to define is an endo-ideal right, and the more control these industries have over an artist's career, the more they are the true endo-ideal. Whatever direction the power in a celebrity-fan relationship is flowing, industry executives profit. Sports stars and other celebrities are treated more like product than powerful people by the industries that profit off them. especially those who are groomed for this role since childhood. The animal flow is the real product of the entertainment industries, and it is this that creates the addictive nature of entertainment. Athletes and entertainers would have strong primary anima conduits if those weren't intercepted by sports and entertainment industries. The interception leaves them vulnerable to dependency on the readily available secondary anima of stardom. The risk of martyrdom is why people cast as a negative image must fear too much success. They will be martyred due to their inability to be an endo ideal. While European men are usually depicted in histories as acting of their own accord, women from Hildegard to Joan of Arc were depicted as acting under the command or as a vessel for a higher spiritual power. In much of Asia, the need to avoid pulling attention is shared by all members of society who fear egalitarian or authoritarian attacks on those who rise above the crowd. Deflection of credit to a higher endo ideal is an attempt to deflect the danger of martyrdom from those most vulnerable to it. Credit cannot be stolen from those who have already gifted it to a more powerful endo ideal. The wearing of masks during rites of anima transfer, including theater, was an important feature. Masks prevent the buildup of anima in a person and protected them from depletion by an audience that refused to return anima and turned on the performer and caused an outward rush. The protection of such a public persona has been destroyed by paparazzi and tabloids. Celebrities are often subject to attacks on their appearance, reputation, and relationships, violations of privacy and rape fantasies or threats. Such violations of the integrity of the innermost circle of self are tools of sublation. Just as audiences and professed fans enjoy tormenting celebrities and leaving them with no privacy or dignity, so do politicians and corporate heads enjoy taking the privacy and dignity of those they hold power over. Privacy and dignity are protections against deanimation, and they are stripped from those being drained, whether that is the idol or the reflectors and negative image. The right to the anima of others is established through endosocial customs. Corporations and states seize the achievement of others for themselves and disperse crumbs to the reflectors. Corporations create martyrs by marketing artists as product to be consumed instead of restricting themselves to marketing their creations. The exchange of money establishes a magical right to the anima of another. Any idol is under existential threat personally if their group withdraws its support. The group is under threat of deanimation, or at least loss of one anima source, if the idol withdraws. In a group dominated by an endo ideal, attempts to leave will result in violence such as the murder of spouses and children who are trying to leave or resist, or the genocidal actions of a challenged tyrant. Groups dominated by reflectors will attack any idol that attempts to dissociate, as is common in celebrity fan worship. Many fans do not care at all about the well-being of their idol. They will not let the idol escape their role as a continual source of group identity and anima without guilt, humiliation, and attacks on their privacy, reputation, physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Celebrity media seems designed solely for this purpose. The relationship between Democratic politicians and their constituents is frequently similar to that of a celebrity, where those that elected the politician also revel in their failures, weakness, and exposure. Just as fans claim to have created celebrities with their support, politicians are reminded that they are allowed to work by voters. Politicians are vilified by assigning collective guilt to all for the exploitative actions of many. This ensures that people who are not seeking to exploit the public will seldom choose the position of a politician. In fact, the election process seems designed to eliminate all but the most ruthless and tyrannical. Martyrs are victims of the egalitarian force, and tyrants are beneficiaries of endosocial force. There are two other types of relationship roles for those who act as anima banks. These are Saviours and Sirens. The Savior is the perfect reflector, and the Siren, the powerful negative image. A savior is one who provides reanimation to those who have been depleted. This is common altruistic behavior and is the way every person begins life, through being held, nursed, spoken to, and so on. Every caregiver of those in need acts as a savior. Saviorism is frequently considered a duty of the powerful, from the noblest oblige, once expected, in theory, from nobles to celebrities, who are expected to raise awareness of various causes on social media. A weaker person cannot hold an excess of anima. Women who married powerful men, and so became the holders of power, were often coerced into becoming saviors or martyrs, or they adopted those roles for their own relief. Saviors gain altruism euphoria. Patrons of those attempting to gain spiritual anima, such as monks, receive some of it themselves through shared credit, just as those who save lives receive credit. Saviorism is a behavior sometimes adopted to feed the vampirism of tyrants, particularly through saving or intercepting those who do not need to be saved or demanding repayment of a debt from what was presented as altruism. Saviors as endosocial predators are those who demand or accept the subordination of those they save and attempt to trap them in endogroups. Saviors may also be preyed upon. Saviors are reflectors, but once a dependency bond has been created, either a martyr or a tyrant may result. Saviors can become either martyrs, exo-ideals, or tyrants, endo-ideals, or they can be attacked as a negative image. They can also be none of these if they escape endosocialism, but that often necessitates becoming isolated from relationship with those they help. This leaves their beneficiaries with debt, which means must be paid forward in further altruism. States and other powerful organizations may have saviors at their head. The typical organization that has a martyr savior is one which the power lies outside the organization head, such as a volunteer organization, particularly ones headed by a member of a negative image class. They may also appear where the group is very organized and its head is very weak. This martyr savior exo-ideal has even appeared at certain times in Europe's Middle Ages between peasants and the lords who offered protection in exchange for tribute, on occasions when the peasants held the balance of power. It appears often when the negative image is placed in a position of power and is then attacked or abandoned, as was Joan of Arc. Altruistic saviorism, such as that involved in giving birth and raising children, has nearly always been seen as a rightful behavior for women. When a man saved the life of another, he was expected to own that life. When a woman saved a life, she was expected to be its servant forever. Both are in some way responsible for the life they save, but they retain their master and subordinate roles. The negative image are, therefore, far more likely to be cast as savior martyrs, and the endo-ideal as savior tyrants. Reflector saviorism has been considered the duty of women in every highly gendered culture. A good reflector reflects all good onto their endo-ideal, and, in doing so, the reflector creates the endo-ideal. A reflector has the power and the responsibility to assign all virtue to the endo-ideal, and the endo-ideal has a duty to accept it. A failure by a man was thus considered natural on his part, but willful evil on the part of the woman who failed to inspire him or created him through a faulty reflection. The woman was expected to be a living saint or avatar. Any real or imagined behavior which fell short of perfection was blamed for any action taken by the man who was held to be a manifestation of her purity. This attitude is still apparent in both news coverage of male crimes and court verdicts, which so often find a woman to blame for male violence. Usually the guilt is assigned to the wife, mother, daughter, victim, or object of desire, but sometimes it is attributed to a completely unrelated woman. Psychoanalysts also consistently blame male transgressions on mothers who failed in potty training or nursing or any aspect of their care. Blame of the reflectors for a faulty endo-ideal image has a twisted sort of logic to it. Every endo-ideal is the creation of the reflectors, and reflectors therefore bear the blame if the endo-ideal is found lacking or flawed. This is the source of the reflectors' humiliation and the pain they feel on their idol's failures or the exposure of them. The 1957, remade in 2007, Hollywood film 3:10 to Yuma depicts a murderous outlaw, Ben Wade, who admires his captor, Dan Evans. During the movie, Wade shoots his most avid reflector, who is trying to rescue him from Evans. While disregard for the life of a gang member is standard fare in Hollywood movies, this particular murder is depicted more as the murder of Wade's own image due to his newfound admiration for the image of what he sees as an upstanding man in Evans. This real or symbolic murder of reflectors accompanies transitions by endo-ideals fairly often. Sometimes it is accomplished through shunning or divorce, and at other times, reflectors complain that they are abandoned or rejected by an idol choosing a new path with their art or ideas. In any case, the relationship is symbiotic enough that it is difficult for the idol to move autonomously to recreate their image on their own without in some way destroying the reflectors. Women have traditionally been seen as agents of coercion for men's behavior, but only as a divine conduit or muse. Her infallible purity could make him better, but her infallible purity, dependent on her being entirely empty of her own will or desires, is existing solely as the image of virtue. A perfect Savior is a woman with no will. She is a living reflection, and he is created by her reflection. She does not reflect what is but ought to be. The Madonna, Savior woman, must also, as all ideal images, have a negative image to coerce behavior in the opposite direction. The whore tempter woman was popularized in Babylon long before Lilith corrupted Adam and his new perfect replacement wife with her insubordination and temptation. Eve received the blame for allowing her perfect emptiness to be corrupted by the older, knowledgeable woman, Snake, but Adam was subsequently credited with all the knowledge gained through the insubordination. The virtue accrued to the endo-ideal, and the guilt to his negative image and perfect reflector. The Madonna Savior expectation has contributed greatly to the binary division of women into good, light women saviors and bad, dark women tempters. The good woman was expected to recognize divinity in the lowest of men and inspire him to at least attempt to be worthy of her reflection. As the good women were responsible for virtue, they were also responsible for purifying womanhood by shunning all that was old, dark, powerful, or knowledgeable. Eve's failure was her failure to shun the older woman, Snake, Tiamat figure, and her failure to refuse filling her imperfect emptiness with knowledge. Colorism is a social valuation far more ancient for women than the extremely recent application to men. This may be related to the use of the negative image reflector roles to define women under male endo-idealism. The reflective power of fair skin and blonde hair contrasts with the darkness in which to bury all guilt. Under yin-yangism and earlier, including the Tiamat legends, women have been associated with dark and chaos and men with light and order. A woman who retains darkness symbolically retains her own will, while the lightest of women may be perceived as emptied of womanhood and reflecting only the man. Light and dark are also very important attributes in guilt-deflecting magic, which was primarily directed at women. Princess Diana was the epitome of the modern Madonna martyr. Extremely fair, a teenage girl, billed as virginal, of the highest class, valuable, vulnerable due to her shunning from the royal family endo group, and pure of the influence of an older woman due to her own motherless childhood. The frenzy that consumed both her and Marilyn Monroe, to whom she was often compared, centered on their vulnerability. Both were raised without the guidance of a mother, just like every Disney or fairy tale princess, so were uncontaminated by the influence of an older woman. As Princess Diana famously pointed out, the frenzied attacks by the media, primarily middle-aged men, and the justifications that she likes it, she asked for it, if she didn't want it to happen, she wouldn't have looked pretty, worn that, have a lot in common with rape. Rape and gynophobia, as well as stalking and other obsessive behavior, are common among the predatory reflectors of martyrs. To a lesser degree, this public appetite for women martyrs has threatened to destroy all women the public casts its eye on, unless they are blocked by a powerful group membrane. Not being martyred is helped by not being a young, blonde, motherless virgin, but the women who fall outside this elite category can be cast as the old corrupting witch. This is the powerful Tiamat figure depicted by the dragons and snakes in the Chaos Camp myths as the wise but evil being that must be slaughtered in order to save the pure virgin for the man. Alternatively, they may be the designated bad woman, dark, isolated, poor, associated with sex and addictions, and bearing the blame for all men's weakness. Marilyn and Diana were both vulnerable and filled with anima from public adulation, and both ignited a frenzy of predators demanding that they give it all and more away. Sinead O'Connor, Whitney Houston, Britney Spears, Amy Winehouse, and Janis Joplin were all tremendous channelers of primary anima who refused, or were refused, the role of perfect reflector or savior. All were consumed by the frenzies surrounding them in any case. The siren acts as the negative image to the savior. The sirens have all blame cast upon them, while the saviors are expected to provide all grace, assuage all guilt, and lift all to their full potential. Both are destroyed in the process. Theoretically, a man could occupy the siren role, but they almost never do. This is because male endo-idealism is the base unit of power and has been for the most of recorded history. Under male endo-idealism, a man with enough power will almost always have enough reflectors to become a tyrant or savior unless there is an exceptionally strong rival intergroup dynamic at play. Elvis Presley was, like Britney Spears, controlled and sold due to the authoritative fear of his sexuality, and, to a lesser extent, this happened to many rock singers. This was the side effect of rock singers, and especially Elvis, being associated with African culture, which was an extreme negative image in the United States, especially at that time. Rock singers were also associated with the female negative image due to their long hair and unisex clothing. Even so, most men in rock did not suffer persecution, and at its worst, it was nothing close to what the real negative image suffered. Increasingly, sirens are becoming as rare among women as they are among men. With the weakening of male endo-idealism around the world, women are also more likely to acquire reflectors as they gain power. The entertainment industry is now filled with powerful endo-ideal women who would have been reviled as sirens even a decade ago. Under male endo-idealism, however, any woman admired by the public will be a target for martyrdom. The Madonna whore, reflector negative image dyad, is the same coin. It can flip at any time, and it is spent in the same fashion. The difference between a savior and a siren is related to the power of reflection. Sirens, like Medusa and Circe, refused to cleanse the guilt of the endo-ideal. Instead, Medusa froze them into stone, and Circe cast them into the image of pigs. It was this grotesque depiction of the endo-ideal as powerless and beastly that made sirens so feared. The savior is the perfect reflector, but the siren is the perfect negative image, revealing all that is darkest and weakest in those who surround them and cast eyes on them. The reflection both fascinates and terrifies its audience, and they would destroy it if they could. Sirens are recipients of power through the fear, awe, and desire they inspire in others. Unlike the pale, young, and virginal savior martyrs, the sirens are dark, mature, and fully embracing sexuality on their own terms. A siren is a witch, a negative image who refused to allow her power to be taken, her credit to be stolen, or her will to be sublated. A siren is a woman who was shunned but refused to leave the spotlight. She is a woman attacked who took the energy of her attackers, leaving them fearful and enraged. She is an image of themselves that they cannot resist but are repulsed and horrified by. Those who circle sirens are attracted to them but also repelled and terrified of the power which could expose their guilt and sublate them. Sirens, saviors, martyrs, and tyrants are all born of unequal anima in a world governed by an egalitarian force. Power held in the form of an exoself is very difficult to achieve in an endosocial society. Because those with power can't have equal and reciprocal interactions with other people, they don't have many opportunities to create connections. Interactions will predominantly disperse energy outward if they obey the egalitarian imperative, and that will create the one-way relationship suffered by an exo-ideal martyr. The alternatives are to become a tyrant endo-ideal, a savior reflector, a siren negative image, or to isolate and protect a core self separate from the external work. The latter is both difficult and unsatisfying. The only freedom possible for a channeler of primary anima is that granted by their surrounding community. If that community allows them to preserve their privacy and dignity and responds with gratitude and acknowledgement to their gifts, and without adulation, they can avoid the endosocial roles forced on them by endosocial societies. They cannot create exosocial interactions if they are only able to interact with endosocial people. People throughout history have come up with solutions to these risks of power accumulation in a person. The most common solution has been the creation of anima banks. We will explore these often disturbing practices in the next chapter. And that is the conclusion of today's chapter from Abstracting Divinity by Heather Marsh. Thank you for joining me. Glad you could be here. And don't forget to like and subscribe if that's your thing.